Fuzzy Mud by Louis Sachar, Chapter 34, Tuesday, November 23rd. Miss Marple lay in a crate in Dr. Robert Crumbly's office. Dr. Crumbly stood alongside the crate, a hypodermic needle in his hand. He was glad the poor dog was sleeping. She didn't suffer when she was asleep. Part Australian Shepherd, part Chow, and part who knows what, Miss Marple used to have thick gray fur with white, black, and brown spots. Most of her fur had fallen out. Her naked skin was covered in blisters. She'd become deaf and blind. In her dream, Missy was running through the woods. All senses were on full alert as she searched for the lost children. Leaves flew up as she dashed over them. She barked in joy, in joyful triumph, and licked the lost girl's face. To Dr. Crumbly, the triumph barks of her dream sounded like pathetic whimpers. He carefully opened her crate so as not to wake her. He worked alone now. 2 of his vet techs had come down with the rash, and he ordered the others to stay home. He wore gloves and boots, but not a hazmat suit. He didn't want to scare the animals. Miss Marple somehow sensed his presence. Her tail gave a weak thump against the bottom of her crate. "Hey, girl," he said, and petted the dog, wishing he didn't have to wear gloves. He thought, at the very least, the dog deserved to feel a warm human touch. He readied the needle. Animals suffered from the rash worse than people, since they didn't take baths. It wasn't only dogs and cats. Dr. Crumbly had seen many different infected animals, including hamsters, rabbits, a ferret, and even a skunk named Penelope. Sadly, he'd been unable to do anything for them except put a final end to their suffering. Over the past 2 weeks, he'd put down more than 20 pets. There had been one animal, however, that had shown no ill effects from the fuzzy mud. Dr. Crumbly owned a land turtle named Maurice. Maurice had gotten stuck in a patch of fuzzy mud in his backyard, and he'd had to pry him out with a shovel. 3 days later, the turtle still hadn't shown any symptoms of the rash. Peering through the microscope in his small office laboratory, Dr. Crumbly had compared samples of Maurice's skin with skin samples he'd taken from some of the infected animals. He'd discovered an enzyme in Maurice's skin cell that didn't appear in any of the other animals' skin cells. Miss Marple turned her head toward him. "You're a good dog," he said. He inserted the needle into her right hind leg, injecting her with a concentration of the turtle enzymes. Chapter 35, Monday, December 6th. Timea was the first human test case. Her parents had spoken to the doctors in charge of the experiment, who had cautioned them that just because the cure had worked on animals, there was no guarantee that it would work on people too. Still, what choice did they have? Timea tried not to let her hopes get too high, although she was very glad to learn that Miss Marple had made a full recovery. She loved that dog. She received 2 injections of the turtle enzymes each day. Various doctors and nurses were constantly coming into her hospital room to check on her. They always asked her name, which began to bug her after a while. She realized there were lots of other patients and the doctors were very busy, but still, it was a very important experiment. They could at least remember her name. She mentioned that to Rhonda, her favorite nurse, who just laughed. "They know your name," Rhonda told her. "They're just testing your memory. Human beings don't normally have these types of enzymes in their bodies, and the doctors are worried about possible bad side effects." "Maybe I'll grow a shell like a turtle," Timea joked. Rhonda laughed. "That'd be cute," she said. "And practical," she added. "Whenever I get tired, I could just duck inside my shell and go to sleep," Timea agreed. Timea's other nurses tried to be cheerful and positive around her, but she could tell they were faking it. She didn't blame them. She realized how horrible she must look with no hair and her skin all blistered. But Rhonda didn't fake it. She talked and joked with Timea like she was just a normal person. Besides asking her to say her name, the doctors also asked her to tell them her address and phone number. They asked her who George Washington was. They had her do math problems in her head, 5 times 7, 26 divided by 2. They listened to her heart and lungs. They took her temperature and checked her blood pressure. They made her walk around in circles and touch her toes. She began to get better at identifying the various objects her doctors held in front of her face. Still, that didn't mean the treatment was necessarily working. After weeks of practice, her brain might simply have learned how to decipher the blurry images. She also hardly noticed the tingling sensation anymore, but again, that could have been because her brain had learned to block it out. "How long did it take for Miss Marple to get better?" she asked one of the doctors. "People and dogs are different," the doctor replied, not answering the question. She asked him about Chad, but was told that Chad had been moved to another part of the hospital. She worried about what that meant. She slept at odd times, never for very long. She was constantly being awakened, if not for a sponge bath, then for a shot or more tests. One night, or it might have been during the day, she had a very odd dream. There was a man in her room. He didn't seem to be a doctor, but she didn't know who he was. He said his name was Fitzy. "That's a strange name. I'm a strange person," he said with a laugh. Every time he spoke, his voice came from another part of the room. He could have just been moving around, but it gave Timea the impression of some kind of floating spirit. "You want anything?" he asked. "No, thanks." "You sure?" he asked. "When I say anything, I mean anything. I'm about to become really rich, like the richest man in the world, maybe." There was a sudden clattering noise. "What was that?" "Nothing," he said. It sounded like he was down on the floor now. "I just knocked over a jar of those wooden things you stick in your mouth and say, 'ah.'" "It sounds like you're putting them back in the jar." "I don't want to make a mess." "You probably should throw them away," Timea told him. "I don't think you should put them in somebody's mouth after they've been on the floor." "Oh, yeah," he agreed. She heard them being dumped into the garbage. "Can I buy you anything?" His voice was very close now. "No, thanks." "I don't want anything either," he said. He sounded sad. "You'd think someone with lots of money would want to buy something, wouldn't you?" "Yes." "Well, I don't." His voice was now far away. "I just like figuring things out. I like science." "You like science?" "It's okay." "What's your favorite subject?" "Reading, I guess," she told him. "I like to write too. I think I want to be a writer someday." "That's good. You can still do that, can't you? I mean, even if you can't see? You can talk into a computer and it will write for you." "I don't know. I write different than I talk." "I know what you mean. I think different than I talk. It's like my brain's filled with all these ideas, but sometimes I don't even recognize the words that come out of my mouth." "You make sense to me," said Timea. "That's good. You sure I can't buy you anything? A piano? A grandfather clock?" "I just want to get better." "Me too. I want everyone to get better. I wanted to help people, not start a worldwide epidemic." He sounded very sad. Timea wished there was something she wanted. "Oh, I know," she suddenly remembered. "I need a new school sweater." She woke up sometime after that while Rhonda was giving her a sponge bath. She thought about her dream and laughed. "What's so funny?" Rhonda asked. "Nothing. A grandfather clock, a piano." The sponge bath felt nice. Often, she didn't know if her eyes were open or shut. It was something she had to think about. She opened them now. The world was full of light and color. Rhonda had red hair and dark eyes. The walls were yellow. Timea started to tremble. "What's wrong?" Rhonda asked. Everything still looked very blurry, but it was a well-lit blur. "Timea, are you okay?" Rhonda asked again. She was afraid she might still be dreaming. She spoke tentatively, almost afraid that if she spoke, the world would go dark again. "Rhonda, I can see you," she said, And when the world didn't disappear, she trembled even harder. I can see! Rhonda began shaking too. She hugged Timea very hard, which was against the rules. "You need to call your mother," she declared. "I'll get the doctor. You call your mother." She hugged Timea again, then got her cell phone for her from the table by the bed. "What time is it?" Timea asked. "Are you sure it's not too late?" "It doesn't matter what time it is," Rhonda said. "Call her now." At 3:45 in the morning, Timea's mother was startled awake by the ring of the phone. Instantly her heart was filled with terror. It took all her courage to answer it, as she tried to prepare herself for the worst. "Yes?" "Hey, Mom, guess what?"